Ethical sourcing. So we're still in the socially responsible sourcing topic. And when we're ethically sourcing, we might be influenced by the salesperson or another individual. Well, how do you know you're being influenced if you don't know the general areas that you could be influenced by or how it's done? So I want you to think about a car salesman. Car salesmen, if they've been doing it for a long time, are really good at these. So, information exchange. They're just presenting information to you. For example, this is how many miles a car gets per gallon on the highway in the city. It has X number of miles on it. If it's used, people, it's red, whatever. They're giving you facts and evidence. Pretty straightforward. They're not asking you for anything, but they're trying to influence you by presenting you the facts. Well, recommendations. Well, the salesman can imply that you'll benefit if you follow the salesperson's suggestions. For example, let's say you're looking for a home. Well, the salesman, or the real estate agent in this case, might suggest you buy a home in a specific area because it's the new up and coming area and the home value is going to dramatically increase within a certain period of time. So you would benefit by the home value increasing. When you sell the home, it would be worth more and you'd make more money. So they're implying that you'll benefit if you follow their suggestion. So what about a request? So the salesperson just flat out asks you to do something. For example, why don't you take a moment and think it over? Something as simple as that. Why don't you take a moment and think it over? I gotta ask a question to my boss, and they'll leave you alone for a few minutes. And you may think about it. You may not. You might think of something else. You might check your Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or whatever application may be on your phone while the salesman's gone. But they're asking you to consider something. But then we have ingratiation. So this is where the salesman's praising you on an accomplishment, so you'll be more likely to agree to them later. For example, you're walking around a car dealership's parking lot where the cars for sale are out there. And you're looking at, let's say, the pickup trucks. They may come over and say, you're looking at one of our best trucks on the lot. You have a great eye. Or that color is, would be great for you. Well, they're praising you, and they're praising your accomplishment because you may be considering a pickup truck and you came in with a four-door sedan. So they may say, oh yeah, that's a great choice to look at a pickup truck. That's an upgrade from what you have. Well, they're trying to, everybody likes to be praised. And that's essentially what they're doing here. So you want them to continue to praise you. You want them to continue to praise you, to compliment you, so you may be more accommodating and agree to certain conditions and certain requests. And then we have threats. So, for example, let's say you were on the fence. You don't know if you want to buy that vehicle. Well, the salesman might say, well, I had someone else here earlier who was very interested in that vehicle. I don't think that vehicle is going to be here when you come back. Well, they're threatening that that vehicle may not still be there, that someone else may buy it, and you would lose the opportunity to purchase that vehicle. So that's your negative repercussion. You would not have that opportunity to purchase the vehicle. Well, that's a threat. It's not. It doesn't appear to be a threat, but it is a threat. And you don't want to have that negative thing happen to you. So that might push some purchasers to buying. And then finally we have promises. So the salesman might say, well, we'll give you 3 free car washes and a couple oil changes. if you purchase this vehicle today. Well, that's probably something standard that they do anyway. But they're trying to promise that, and it seems like it's something that they may not normally promise. They might say, hey, don't tell my boss, but I can give you a couple free coupons to oil changes, and the owner also owns the car wash down the street. I can give you a couple coupons there for the full detailed car wash. They may sound it like it's something they should not be doing, but they're trying to influence you, because you might be like, oh well, that made the deal happen here, so I'm going to go ahead and buy it. And you might feel that you would lose out if you did not buy the car. So these are just some influencing tactics that salesmen use. Now, I use the car and I also use real estate, but think about other things. Like if you see a TV commercial, there's a sale going on and it ends Sunday at midnight. And you look at the clock and it's already 11 o'clock on Sunday. Well, we have an hour left. So that's kind of a threat, where that commercial is basically saying you'll miss the sale if you don't make your purchase by midnight. So think about it. So what are some unethical behaviors in purchasing? Well, we have acceptance of supplier favors. So depending on the company you work for and your suppliers, it used to be something common where sports tickets would be given as a gift. Well, some companies, some suppliers will get the expenses with expensive locations like box seats at a sporting arena. And they heard that you like a certain team. Well, they might say, well, they're having a game on next Tuesday. Why don't you come and join us in the box? And something like that. Well, that's a supplier favor. That also could be a bribe. So be careful on that. Then we have conflicts of interest. So think about it as, let's say I'm your supplier, and I'm recommending to you that, or no, let's change that. I'm your coworker, and I also own a business that could be a potential supplier to what you're working on, what you're trying to source for purchase. Well, there's a conflict of interest that the company has because I own that company, or I'm a major shareholder. I mean, every company defines this a little different. So it might be a conflict of interest for the company I work for to purchase from a company I own. I mean, you kind of hear this all the time when you get into the political arena, when you hear about politicians and their business interests and stuff like that, how sometimes they kind of push things to help their business. So think about that. Your company will have a conflict of interest policy, and make sure to read it. It probably will be given to you on your first day of work in orientation. Then we have sharp business practices. So sometimes we have really strict business practices, and sometimes we have really loose ones. So some sharp business practices may be unethical. If you have any concerns about this, you need to talk to your supervisor or your manager, and they can explain what's going on, and maybe by you bringing it up, they'll be like, oh, that's not ethical, so we're going to look into that more. And then, of course, can you think of any unethical behaviors in purchasing? So there's a lot of them out there. These are just a couple, but take your time once this video is over and think about it. And I'm sure you can list probably about another 5. So since we've identified unethical, what about ethical behaviors? Well, we need to learn how to promote the ethical behaviors. Because if we identify an unethical one, we need to know how to change what we do to promote the ethical. So one way is to rotate assignments. So you rotate your purchasing people. So if one person is always doing business with company ABC, well, it might be time to move them on to work on a different area. Let's say your person purchases lab supplies because you have research and development. Well, maybe they've gotten too familiar with their suppliers that they go to. And maybe they need to move you into purchasing lab supplies and move that other person into another area, another category to maintain that ethical behavior. Now, top management. Top management needs to support ethical behavior. They need to lead by example, and also they can say great game, but they need to actually walk the walk. So you need management at all levels to support ethical behavior. And then we need to send letters to our suppliers emphasizing there is a no gift policy, or the policy your company has. The easiest way is just to say there's no gift policy. But, you know, if you have a supplier come to your office and they leave a pen, is that pen considered a gift? Or they left a stack of Post-it notes with their company logo on it. Well, it goes back to what your company defines as a gift. It might be a dollar threshold. It might be you're not allowed to receive anything from a supplier except for catalogs. Well, make sure you understand that. And then if your company has a compliance officer or an ombudsman, for example, the university has an ombudsman, and I'm sure there's compliance officers at the university also. But these are people that are meant to keep an eye on things. The compliance officer is making sure everybody's following and complying with the policies. An ombudsman doesn't really take anybody's side, but they can help resolve issues that may arise. So, for example, at the university, there's an ombudsman for faculty. So when there's an issue between a faculty member and the university, that faculty member could go to the ombudsman, and the ombudsman acts like a middle person, but they're not in favor of the university and they're not in favor of the faculty member. They're just kind of like the person in the middle that tries to get everybody to come to a understanding and a favorable resolution for everybody. At least it's one step. And then finally, we need to maintain or create ethical standards and guidelines. If we can do that and everybody understands them and follows them, that will eliminate a huge amount. More than just in purchasing. Could be these standards can apply to all departments of the company. So this is basically behavior in sourcing. There's a lot of things we can do right and a lot of things that we can do wrong. There's a lot of potential for things to go wrong, but there's a huge amount of potential for things to go right. So think about this when you are getting into your companies, regardless if you're in supply chain or not. A lot of these can apply to every department in a company. So next, let's talk about sustainable sourcing and how that impacts purchasing.